Hello there, everybody, and welcome back. In this country, youth sports participation is plummeting. It is not just screen time. Today, in this video, we're going to be asking that tough question. Are parents unintentionally pushing kids out of youth sports? That's what we'll be dealing with in this video. This can be a touchy topic for some people to listen to. And if we're going to really address this idea of parents pushing too hard, there's some things we got to kind of cover with this. First is, what does it look like? What does that overinvolvement look like? And what's the motive for the parents? What's the psychological cost? We're going to look at also at two stories of professional athletes who had to deal with this. And then lastly, how can parents really support their teenagers and what that would look like? Those things and more are what we'll be covering in this video. Well-meaning parents are often overanalyzing, constantly coaching. They're looking at statistics and their data and comparing times and reviewing film with the kids. And they are constantly critiquing their child and not asking emotionally related questions and not focusing on the growth and the learning and all that. They are so focused on results that the whole idea of growth and understanding the process gets lost. And that increases anxiety, and it also decreases intrinsic motivation, right? Now the child's beginning to try to do it to please mom or dad. And it's really important to begin to understand this idea of deep practice and that athletes need to fail. Actually, anybody developing a skill needs to fail, but they need to begin to analyze what's going on. Part of that analysis needs to be themselves, all right? So they need to go through it and think about it on their own. It can't just come from a coach pointing it out. If somebody outside, which is why we have coaches, points something out like that, the athlete, the person still needs to be able to go internally and begin to kind of process through exactly what the coach said they saw or seeing. But if that person's not going through it themselves internally, that learning isn't really happening. So that's why we have coaches. But parents need to begin to back off a little bit and stop overanalyzing, focusing on the end result and not helping the child learn and grow emotionally as well as skill-wise. In a study published in the Psychology of Sports and Exercise, the research showed that parent expectations are going to have a higher predicting rate of athlete burnout than coaches' expectations. So when the parents are, pushing, trying to really hold these high expectations, then athletes will have a higher likelihood of burning out. The motives are usually very positive for parents. They want their child who's showing this interest in sports to be at their best, to do their best. They have come under the idea that pushing them is what they need. And there is some truth to that. And they just really need to understand that supporting and pushing, encouraging is different than constantly driving these expectations really high. Example, Todd Maranovich was from an earliest age, his dad was training him to be an elite football player. Like by the time he was just learning to walk, he was having him doing stretching exercises and physical exercises to develop those muscles and speed. It didn't stop at all. Kept pushing and pushing. He was going to be the next great quarterback. By the time he was out of college and he went to USC, where he starred, he burnt out in drugs and arrests and alcohol abuse later. He crashed. He crashed hard. Todd was quoted as saying, "I didn't choose football. My dad did." When you compare that to Patrick Mahomes, whose father was a professional athlete, and Patrick Mahomes said, "My dad gave me the freedom and encouraged me, and he pushed me, but he wasn't ever really directing me, and that gave me the power to choose on my own." And those two differences made a world of difference in the development of those two quarterbacks. There's an article published in the Journal of Sport Behavior many years ago. The data is still good, which is why we still kind of quote this. But it said that children of controlling parents were far more likely to burn out, to drop out, have anxiety, and to have an identity that is associated where their worth is associated to their outcomes or their performance. None of that is good, right? We saw that in the case of Todd Moranovich's story, where when athletes begin to feel that, and they connect to that, and then they're caught up in that emotion all the time of trying to please their parents and never meeting those expectations and constantly being criticized and really living in that anxious world, and their worth is only whether they do well in this particular sport. That has a long-term negative impact on physical health, emotional well-being, ability to build relationships, never mind your ability to perform at the sport you at one time probably loved. And that spills over into all your areas of your life. None of those results are good. And it's what happens, the emotional cost of when parents are overzealous and really kind of push these expectations and are focused so much on just the results. There's a great story of Zach Greinke, and I say great because of how he's able to overcome. But he was an outstanding. He became a multiple-time All-Star, Cy Young Award winner. When he first came up with the Kansas City Royals, he was socially anxious, like melting down, like he couldn't handle the limelight. And when he talked about this later on, years later, with an ESPN interview, he talked about how he lost the love of baseball about the age of 12 years old. So stop and think about that for a moment, right? Up until then, he played youth baseball, and apparently he was enjoying it, having fun. But then, because of the expectations and his dad constantly pushing him and critiquing him and trying to hold these expectations, like, if you're going to get to this next level, you've got to meet this and that and blah, blah, blah. Zach Greinke was good. But by the time he was a young man, early 20s when he first appeared with the Royals, he had to step away for the game. He had to stop competing for a while to get mental health help. Fortunately, he got that help. And because he got that help and he was good enough, he was able to come back to the game, find that joy, find that passion. He pitched for years, multiple time All-Star, Cy Young Award winner. He became one of the best pitchers of his generation. Think about all the kids who maybe not quite that good or burnt out even before they got a chance to really develop that, simply because a parent was trying to help them become the best they could be, but didn't know how to go about doing that in a healthy way and just set that child up for all those emotional issues that Todd Baranovich had and Zach Greinke had as well. For parents who want the best for the child, which is like probably the vast, overwhelming majority of us, right? The way you do that is you set expectations, of course you do, but you're constantly communicating with your child and trying to find out where they are emotionally, and you ask good questions and process-oriented questions. You're trying to help your child begin to think through what might, maybe if a performance didn't go so well, what they're learning from that. This is this whole idea of deep practice. You can support that. You can be ready there to practice with a child, to keep encouraging them. What you want to also make sure is that they don't get sucked in to a negative emotion because of a bad performance and spiral down simply because of that. You want to be there to help reframe that. Again, ask different questions. How are you feeling so down right now? And sometimes, like on the car ride home, that might not be the time to do it, right? You need to know your child and give them some space as well. I still remember very well my son, freshman year, playing freshman summer baseball. So it's the next wave of varsity players. And he was having a really rough summer. His dream was to play varsity baseball. He wanted to replace the star shortstop on his high school team by the time he was a junior, because at that point, the kid would have graduated. And he got one hit in his very last at bat. And watching him game after game come off the field with his head hanging down, as a parent who loved baseball and somebody who coached, was hard. I had to, kind of let him process some of this. Finally, it's like, listen, I am ready to help you. Do you want to get better? Do you want to reach that next level? Yes. Great. Now we can go to work. This is what we need to do. And we went to work. By the time he got to be that junior, he became the starting shortstop and he became an all-conference player, and he eventually ended up walking on one of the top Division III school teams in the country. If I had overparented and overcoached, he might have quit the game. As we wrap up this video, I'm going to once again encourage you to subscribe to our channel, check out all other videos, and we're going to be adding a whole new section of videos as well, podcasts. Check it all out. You also might want to specifically check out the video, Overzealous Coaches Ruining Youth Sports. So check that video out today, and I'll see you in another one.